Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Kieran and I help people using a spiritual perspective. Today, guys, we're going to be talking about 5 pieces of bad advice given to twin flames during their separation. This advice was given to me from different twin flame coaches at some point. Usually, all of these are pretty much coming from when I was involved in what we would probably call a false twin. Okay, the label, again, doesn't really matter, but it was just somebody that I thought was my twin. It wasn't. And these are not supposed to be so black and white that you're supposed to absolutely stay away from them. It's just that I've seen these 5 pieces of advice essentially hurt others more than help them to the finish line. All right, I've seen them trip people rather than help them to the finish line. Right, and another way of putting it, if you're going with a metaphor of a race or something. So I just want you to sort of see what resonates and kind of have a feel of where I'm coming from with these things, because sometimes this advice that I'm going to share with you is given out of good nature, but good nature does not necessarily have good consequences. Right? It's like that saying, the path to hell is paved in good intentions. And that sort of like paints a picture there, right? So that's kind of the idea that we're going with. So I'm just going to get right into it and start with number 1. And the first piece of bad advice given to twin flames: date other people. This is, in my opinion, really bad advice. Now, I understand the idea. The idea is, okay, well, dating other people will help you get to know yourself, get to know others, see what you really want out of life, etc. In that sense, it's not such a bad idea, but it is misguided, and I'll tell you why. When you're in love with somebody, truly in love with them, whatever that means to you, dating other people is going to do nothing to you. It's going to hurt you probably, and it's probably going to hurt the other person that you're trying to date, right? Because we're dating other people. I mean, what does that mean to you? Going on one date with 7 people just to see what it's like to have dinner with a stranger? Or does it mean actually being vulnerable and intimate with other people? Does it mean having sex? Does it mean hooking up? Does it mean going on a trip somewhere? Does it mean actually becoming friends and getting to trust in each other? Because those things take time and intimacy and levels of emotion that you can't all just happen overnight. So I feel like a lot of this advice is given to twin flames with this idea that, oh, well, just by dating somebody else, you'll get over them or you'll find something, but really it just leads to pain and hurt. And it doesn't matter if you're a twin. That's how you sort of know that advice isn't necessarily always helpful, because it doesn't matter who you're in love with. It doesn't matter what kind of perspective you have. I mean, throughout history, it's like you're in love with somebody and they don't reciprocate your feelings, but you're in love with them, or you two have broken up or whatever, right? You don't just go and date other people, right? You have to grieve, you have to get over things, you have to understand what you're going through, you have to learn to be single and be alone. There is no sort of truth you're going to find from just dating around other people, and especially when we're talking about something as energetically dynamic as a twin flame relationship, you're not going to get the results that you think from dating other people. And I've seen that for myself, and I've seen that in others so many times. I know this woman who will date all of these people, but none of it goes anywhere, and it all ends up with essentially them not really being able to commit, just kind of wanting to use her for sex, and so it all just ends up in the same dead zone, and she's still waiting on the twin flame to come back, right? But so she's never going to be able to move on. She's never going to be able to get there, right? And that picture that I'm painting, there's several people that I know who go through that process. It's not just like one woman or one man. It's a pattern. It's a pattern that I'm familiar with as well, because I was in that same position just a few years ago. So it's not even a judgment thing. It's a recognition of what's happening to people. And dating other people just seems to confuse and hinder more often than it helps. Now, I understand the benefits of getting to know other people, but dating other people and getting to know them and exploring yourself, that comes from a place of wholeness already, if you really want to go out there. But just trying to get over somebody or trying to forget about your twin and just pretend that you're not in love isn't going to give you the satisfaction or the desired results by just dating other people. It wouldn't happen if you just broke up with somebody, and it wouldn't happen if you're trying to get over somebody that has hurt you in some way. Okay, it just wouldn't work. So number 2, guys, is that, what do I have written down here? You're always going to end up together. This is a pretty false narrative, actually. Now, even within twin flame communities, you have people that are like, oh, well, you don't always end up with your twin, or other people are, you'll always end up with your twin, right? I don't know. Some people treat the twin flame relationship as 10 free sandwich hole punch on your Subway gift card. You've got 10, so you're guaranteed a free sub, right? But what if the Subway closes because they had a donkey show in there, and that's against health code violations? You never know what's going to cause a delay or what's going to end. So you don't know if your twin flame relationship's going to last. You don't know if they are your twin. I can't prove it. You can't prove it. It's a feeling. It's an intuitive thing. And yet that intuition, that feeling, that recognition of a connection, a deep connection with somebody, the label makes it into something bigger than it has to be. It gives you all this information, all this advice, bad advice like I'm talking about. And a lot of the time you just don't know what to trust and really can't even listen to yourself anymore. So you're not guaranteed a relationship. That's not guaranteed. That's not even guaranteed in life, by the way. Do you know how many people I've known that have died before they ever even had a chance to have a real relationship, or have killed themselves? Even from my high school, there's like 4 people that died. 3 of them, I think, killed themselves. So, there's a lot. You don't know what's going to happen to your twin or you. You could die, you could get injured, you could move this way, your life could go in completely different directions. You can't rely on a label to make you feel good. And so I understand the desire to say, well, you'll always end up with the person that you're meant to be with. That's absolutely true, right? Like, whatever's meant for you will happen, absolutely and surely. And if that's the case, then it won't matter anyway, right? A symptom will essentially be that you'll end up with them if that's the case. But relying on the label of a twin flame and the information that may or may not be associated with it is not a good way of judging the success of your relationship. It just isn't. You can't rely on uncertainty and doubt and future to take care of yourself in the present. So it just, in my opinion, it has never really helped me when people have said that, because it just makes it feel like I'm waiting even longer for something to happen. So anyway, number 3 is that you're to blame for the separation. This one sucks so much to hear. It's your fault that you're separated. Now, this is pretty funny on 2 different levels. Maybe not funny like ha, and more funny like, oh, that sucks. But either way. Now, on the 2 levels that it's working at, we're talking about the other person, the twin flame, and then your twin flame, whatever they may be, and of course you yourself. So let's start with the other person, essentially. Now, if you're to blame for separation, then are they not to blame as well? Whose fault is it that you're separated? Is it anybody's fault? So what I mean by this is, you could be doing your best work, your best job. You could be doing everything that you're supposed to in your life. You could be focusing on your career. You could be taking care of your health. You could be having fun. You could be balanced. You could be just living your life to the best ability that you can. Nobody's perfect, but you're trying your best. You're not doing cocaine on the weekends, and you're not having sex with everybody you meet. You're not doing anything dangerous or erratic or stupid or impulsive, and you're having fun, and you're focused on yourself and all of that great stuff that people love to say this is what you should do. Now, what happens when you do all that and you're still not with your twin? The narrative that separation is your fault makes you feel guilty, because even though you're doing so much, it still has no sort of consequence. There's no result. There's no positive outcome. And that sucks to sort of hear people talk about or try to rationalize, because they're essentially continuing to blame themselves for someone else's lack of action. And that's horrible, because it's action is what makes or breaks a relationship. You can't have a relationship with no action. So you have to allow yourself to understand that you could do everything that you possibly could to make something work, and if it doesn't, that's not your fault, right? So that's just a basic truth. It doesn't even have anything to do with twin flames. It's just a basic truth of relationships, whether they're platonic or personal or interpersonal or familiar or, of course, romantic. That's just a sort of basic truth. And then when it comes to yourself, of course, right, and this is what I'm talking about with the guilt, you can't destroy the progress that you've made based on the idea that it'll never be enough, right? So you're going to feel guilty, you're going to feel lost, and it's going to add to a lot of negative feelings building up within you. And in my experience, the idea that you're to blame for separation already seems very silly, because if you believe in a basic spiritual principle, which would be that everything happens for a reason, whatever's meant to happen to you will happen to you, nothing that's meant to be yours will ever go away, if those kind of basic principles of spirituality, which probably many of you believe watching this, if that's all true, then your separation was meant to happen. No? Does that make sense? I mean, how can you believe that everything happens for a reason and then also blame yourself for the separation? Those two ideas contradict each other. So you have to allow yourself to live in the sort of gray area where you're saying, well, you know what? Of course I could always do better, or I could always do more things, but I think I'm doing a pretty good job. I'm trying my best. I don't need to be this perfect, enlightened individual to receive love from anybody, for whether it's a twin flame or a family member or a friend or people or strangers or acquaintances. You don't need to be somebody to deserve something, okay? And that's a basic spiritual truth. Again, these are all things that you can relate back to yourself and not necessarily just the twin flame. And that's how I know, in my experience, that this information that I'm sharing with you is at least coming from a place of love. It doesn't have to be 100% objective truth, but I'm trying to say this with love. So the fourth thing here that I have written down is, of course, that separation has to happen at all. That's sort of another thing. If you think about it, the more that you believe that separation has to happen, the more that you're going to see opportunities, or the longer that the separation is already going to happen, right? Now, again, I've already talked about how you might not end up with them anyway, right? In which case, if separation has to happen, then are we also going to go ahead and say again, well, everything happens for a reason, right? But the idea itself that separation has to happen makes it seem like no matter what you do, you have to be separated. And having that idea already in your mind, I think, creates a lot of uncertainty and a lot of fear, mostly, because as soon as you start reading about twin flames, you start getting into all these different phases, the separation and all this stuff. And if everybody has it like listed as this information, then the next thing you know, you're like, oh shit, well, I guess we're going to be separated. And then you start doing things to try and, of course, stop that separation, which then makes it even more prominent, more imminent, right? The idea that the harder you hold on, the farther it gets away from you, like that chasing energy, right? So the idea that you have to be separated, I feel, causes just a lot of inner turmoil. You may end up separated, you may not end up separated. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen anyway. But I just feel that the idea that separation has to exist makes it last longer, because you're giving in to that idea, you're believing that idea. And the placebo effect is incredibly powerful. Science doesn't even understand it fully, not yet anyway. And so the idea that you give into this idea, this belief system, that's going to basically cause that to just keep on coming true. What would be like a good practical example is you believe that everybody's out to get you, and you're going to constantly find opportunities or people or situations in which you feel threatened, right? And which is only going to prove to you your own paranoia. And it's the same with separation. If you believe that you're supposed to be separated, you're going to find emotions, blockages, you're going to find them acting out, yourself acting out, situations which cause you farther apart. You're going to start thinking, oh, well, we have to be this way, so what the hell am I going to do? I have to do this. So there's this idea that things have to be a certain way, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. It might end up that way, but I can guarantee you that even if it did end up that way anyway, it wouldn't be as long, it wouldn't be as bad, it wouldn't be as hard. Allowing things to happen naturally is obviously going to have a sort of shorter side effect than forcing a belief to come true, just because the information was already there. So number 5 is letting go brings them back. Just automatically brings them back. People treat this as a fail-safe for a relationship. Letting go is not something you do to get someone back. Letting go is not saying, well, if I do this, my twin will come back. Letting go is saying you don't give a shit if they come back or not, because you're okay on your own. You've let go. That's what letting go is. Letting go is not, this is your twin, and you're saying to yourself, well, I love them so much, but I can't do anything. But you know what? I read on the internet, letting go works. So let me let go of them. And you put them down, and you go about your life. You date other people. You take whatever, all this advice that I'm telling you, and you know, you check on it every so often, you know, and you think, well, I can't wait for that thing to come back. That's not letting go. Letting go is you're done. It's over. You don't care if you ever see this pen again, if you ever see this person again. You might be happy if you do. You guys might start dating again. You might come from a different place. You might have different perspectives, be different ages, different you know, parts of your life, different things going on. That's all fine, right? I'm not here to predict the absolute future for you, but I am here to say that letting go is not a fail-safe. You can't just expect to let go of somebody and then know that they're going to come back. That's not really letting go. Letting go, again, is understanding that whatever happens with this person, you're okay without them on your own. That's letting go. And it's the same thing with trying to manifest anything in your life. You're not letting go of, right, trying to get in a new job or whatever. You're essentially saying, I'm okay without one. My worth can be determined without a job. Same thing here. Your worth can be determined without a relationship. So don't use letting go as a sort of way to trick yourself or trick the universe into giving you what you desire. That's not how letting go works. Letting go is the absence of desire. So those are just some little 5 pieces of advice. You know, I'd be interested to hear your opinions on them. Again, these are not necessarily 100% true all the time, but I have, again, seen that these little pieces of advice have just hurt more people than helped them. You know, like 8 out of 10 people, they're hurting more than helping. And that's just sort of, I'm basing that off of real world numbers, like real things that I've seen as a coach, as somebody who's helped people, emailed, texted them, talked to a lot of twin flames or people in relationships, what I've experienced myself. So I'm not just making this shit up just for shits and giggles, you know, as fun as that would be. But this is, I feel, something that could possibly resonate with you guys if you're watching this video. And I hope that does resonate. I hope that at least 2 of these things out of the 5 that I mentioned make sense to you and that you can take something away from it. I don't ask that you believe everything that I say. I'm just asking that you open yourself up to potentially learning something new, but more importantly than what I'm saying, remembering that you don't need anything or anybody to feel good about yourself now today. You don't need any of that stuff. So that's really where I'm coming from, guys. Okay, so I hope you guys have a good weekend, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.